how to be in TLA. And one thing I remember Mike King being an extremely dedicated person to growing in the business. He could not make his division's TLA during one event, and he drove from, and I think at the time he was going to he was going to school in Columbia, and he drove all the way to Chicago, to Oak Brook, Illinois, so he could, because he was missing their TLA, so he came to ours. And I was just so impressed with this young gentleman and he showed up dressed to the nines, ready to learn, ready to grow. And again, I'm not the region manager, but I think this person is on a fast trajectory to be one of the next division managers in our company and doing outstanding things. He's also the #1 district manager in the Central region, running the top district office and new business in the entire Central region for the year. So turning things over to how to do TLA, Mike King, let's give him some snaps. Take it away, Michael.
Thank
Dress
you.
to the nines again.
Thank you for the kind words, Greg. It was a fun little trip down memory lane. I had forgotten that Lindsay, another district manager in our division, and I had made the hike up, and y'all had a great show. You know, it was fun to see like the differences between our program and so many similarities. But hopefully y'all have been having a great SC2 event so far. Jacob, knockout message, man. Looking sharp as always. The background is killer, dude. You got me excited to go through TLA again, you know. And for those of you that I might not have met yet, you know, this is my, I believe, 6th summer in the business, 5th as a district manager, and I've been through TLA a number of times. But just seeing the kind of, you know, memories that you had in there and your passion about the program really got me excited, you know, to do it all over again, and this time from a new perspective. But the purpose of my message today, I want to talk to you about not how to be in TLA as in how to get into the program, but really how to show up, you know, as a member of the TLA program. So it's going to be a relatively brief message today, but I want to talk to you about kind of the core 4 things of being a good, you know, active participant in the program, how to get the most out of the time that you'd be spending as a member of the Leadership Academy, and a couple of just, you know, bonus tips at the end, maybe a story or two along the way. But one thing that I will say, you know, and Greg, I appreciate you bringing that back, because I had a lot of fond memories of you running that event. And it was such a packed house, and the energy was electric. You know, I remember trying to find your office initially, and my first thought was, wow, Naperville's really nice. 2 is like, wow, this building's really nice. 3, oh my God, there's like 50 people here, you know, or more. It was just, you couldn't replicate that elsewhere if you tried. But it's a good reminder that, you know, meeting makers make it. You know, and y'all have probably seen this in your office this summer, you know, that the people that are generally highest on your sales reports are the ones that are at every team meeting. You know, the people that are the highest on your sales reports are the ones that, you know, go to champions clubs, go to rising stars, you know, they field train with their peers and do all of that, you know. And there's a direct correlation between the highest performing assistant managers and branch managers to the ones that make it to every single Leadership Academy event. Now, I'm going to do the best that I can to speak in general terms, because every division runs a slightly different program. You know, last year we made the complete shift to running virtual Leadership Academies. It was never easier to go there, Becca, than it is now, right? Just open up your computer, slap on Zoom. There's basically like no excuse, you know, not to be there. It's like, oh, my laptop died. Get a charger. My dog ate my charger. Get your friend's computer. We don't have Wi-Fi. Go to a McDonald's or a Starbucks, right? You know, do what you got to do. You know, but even in the kind of quote unquote old school days of doing only live Leadership Academies, no virtual offices. You know, I remember my peer in the business, Nate. You know, he's been through Leadership Academy, I believe 9, maybe 10 times now. You know, he grew up in Marion, Iowa. And the division that he was a part of, our headquarters office was in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, if you're not great at geography, that's a hike. And even just from, where he was from in Iowa to the center of Missouri, Columbia, where we used to run our leadership academies here in Gateway, he never missed one. Never missed one in all of his years of college. He would make that trip out to Columbia generally once a month, every single month for 4 years of school. One of the best sales reps, one of my best assistant managers, and one of my best branch managers that ever deployed out of our district, Weston Porter. He went top 20 in the company. I want to say he's at like 280 grand in career sales, just finished up his senior year of college this past May. His first 2 years of school, he was going to Northwestern. He played football there, and, he's a brilliant guy. School is really important to him. But he used to make the hike from Evanston to St. Louis for our leadership academy once a month. And granted, Riley, like there were times where, his team had a game on a weekend that he couldn't miss. But barring something like that, there was an absolute requirement that he was there. He would suck it up, and he would drive down because he knew that it was worth his time, right? If you think about this, basically 9 days, like 9 monthly meetings was the difference between him being a scrub one summer and doing what he did, which was, I believe $150,000 branch. He sold 20 grand, maybe 25. He was a 5-figure income earner, and he qualified for our national trip to the Cayman Islands. Like that was a great investment of 1 weekend a month. Another reason why meetings matter is it's a chance to really plug in with your people. I don't know about all of you, how long you've been in the business, whether this is your first summer, you've been around for a while, but my experience when I was in college was, I had the summertime, I had like my vector crew, and I still had my buddies in St. Louis that I would see, but in college, I had my college crew, and my friends were great. I loved them to death, but there was just different, we showed up differently. I got different things from different people. They filled different parts of my life, but, being outside of the kind of, Cutco sphere, sometimes I would have natural doubts of like, is it worth it? Should I keep doing this? I didn't want to be a district manager when I first started Leadership Academy. I didn't think so, at least. I was like, why am I showing up again? The TLA events once a month were my chance to like re-plug in, reconnect to what brought me to this company in the first place and what had kept me here. And it's also a great chance for kind of like a spot check. Brady, I know Nate's been having conversations with you of like, hey man, let's get you run your first interview in August, and that's a learned skill set, right? The meetings aren't necessarily where you'll learn how to run an interview. There will be components of that, but it's also a great place to be, hey Brady, how's your interview now in October relative to when I taught you this thing in August? And it's a great spot check to just track how you're doing. And again, most divisions do this, some may not, but oftentimes we'll have a weekly conference call too to give you a little bit of guidance, as to how to make the most out of the program over those 9 months. The way I like to describe Leadership Academy to people oftentimes is it's like an independent study class. So I've got you all, ballooned up on my screen. I can see most of you. Just by a quick show of hands, how many of you have ever taken a self-paced course or an online course where there's like deadlines for assignments, but you can do them whenever you want? Not exactly Zoom U, is a little bit more autonomous. Okay, great. Like it's really similar to that. And so when I was in the Leadership Academy, my senior year of college, at a certain point in like October, November, I made the decision to be a district manager. And I'm like, okay, what do I need to know to actually not suck at this job? My first job out of college, how do I do well at this? And my division manager was like, well, you need to know how to interview people effectively, right? You need to know how to be a talent scout, how to identify, recruit, train, and develop talented individuals. Having a good interview is part of that. I was like, okay, put that on my list of things to do. Make sure I know how to interview people well. Back in the day, we didn't do divisional trainings either. Most of you probably trained in a really large virtual environment. We would do office by office. And he's like, hey man, you're on your own, be 22, you're a grown adult, you have to run this, then I believe it was like 21-hour long training seminar. Better study up, you don't want to waste people's time. You got to actually teach them how to sell the knives. I'm like, okay, learn 21 hours of training, check. and so many different things. Learn how to work with people, learn how to coach reps, learn how to motivate, inspire, lead by example, and also scale your influence through others. All of these were things that I knew were kind of overarching themes of what I needed to learn. And I knew that that was going to require a little bit of time outside of just the monthly meetings. And Mike, so what I did, man, I just looked at my school schedule, and this is what worked for me. But my junior and senior of college, I was really light on Friday classes, as most of you probably are. I usually had like one class on Fridays, like 10 a.m. It was like a lab or something like that out of the business school. I was like, great, I'll just do Friday afternoons for like 3 hours. That's my Cutco time. Right. And that's where I learned how to like script an interview and then role play it and, record myself, like looking for, how to be a better public speaker. How do I present in front of others? Not every week did I do it for 3 hours. And Brennan, I'm not even saying it needs to be like a 3 hour a week thing, but if you took even just 1 hour a week, right, to do your homework, so to speak, compounded over, the square, that's 40 extra hours of getting better at your job, right? And what I'll pitch to you is, what if that extra 40 minutes was the difference between earning $3,000 to $5,000 in the summer or profiting $16,000 in a summer, like Casey Cooper did last year with her first branch, right? So just, again, it's different for everybody. Making time for the simple things. What a branch really needs to know today, Evan, is they need to know something that we call fire number, which is essentially identifying and, attracting talent, how to line people that you want up for interviews. You need to know how to run a good interview, Caleb, right? No sense in having them in your virtual door if, you don't actually bring people on board. And then Bianca, another thing is you need to learn how to work with people. And the great thing is all of that's a natural continuation of what you've already been doing in this job, right? Like Carolyn, you already know how to identify and attract talent because you prospect for good customers, right? Running an interview is like doing a demo. Okay. And then PDI and PCs, like working with people, it takes that self-talk that you probably use to stay disciplined and stay motivated personally to do well at the sales role. And you're just applying it with others, right? It's just a 2.0 level. Another thing that I think is really important of being a good member of the Leadership Academy is consistent communication with your manager. Okay. Just by a quick show of hands, I'm not going to throw you under the bus, but anyone ever not been on the same page with your manager, cause a little rift between like what you wanted and what they were telling you to do? Yeah, me too. Like Brady, you're popping up on my screen. Nate made this comment the other day. He's like, man, everyone loves working with me. I was like, man, when you were my PSM, there were those days where we were not seeing eye to eye, and that's normal, right? You could ask any one of my reps. I'm sure they'd say the exact same thing. Overarching experience, probably positive. Little moments, oh man, going head to head, and that's okay. But what fixes that, Riley, is great communication. It's the difference between confusion and clarity. Okay. And I promise you this, you might leave this event, some of you, like, I'm a 10 out of 10. I want to run a branch office next summer, or I want to run a district office when I graduate. And I guarantee you, Lakin, within 24 hours to the next 7 days, it is going to be the furthest thing from your mind. Like, that sounds awful. I don't think I could, should, or will do that. And you'll have this, no joke, this emotional and kind of like logical, almost roller coaster of, is it the right choice? It's not the right choice. Could be. Sounds great. It's perfect. I don't know how I feel about that, right? There will be highs and lows just the same way that you had as a sales rep. All I'm asking, I'm not asking that you're like a 10 out of 10. I want to do this for sure for the next 9 months. All that I'm asking, Bridget, is that you're open with your manager about the things that are going on in your life, what you're thinking, how you're feeling. And we'll be honest with you of however we can help. Right? Our goal today is not to rally the troops so that all of you go out and run branch offices next year or new district offices. It might not be right for every single one of you, right, to end up in that role. Some of you would be awesome sales managers in a really high-powered branch or district office, right? What we want to do is we want to make sure that by the end of April, we'll call it, if opening an office is right for you, you are primed and ready in a position to do so, right? That you have your options open, as has been talked about, throughout this event. we like to do one-on-one calls, right? Quick show of hands. How many of you had like a personal coaching session with one of your managers before the SC2 push, right? Like we dove in with you and we're like, hey, let's make sure we're on the same page. We like to do that, periodically when you're in school. And, it's not like being a new rep, Marilyn, where you're going to call us before and after every demo. But we'll probably want to talk to you for like 20, 30 minutes, once every week or two. Just check in, see how you're doing, right? And how we can help you move the needle. And then we'll also talk about non-Cutco stuff too, but right, just making sure that we're on the same page and we have a good working relationship, even when you have other stuff going on in your world. And the fourth thing I'll tell you out of the core four is, sell when it's appropriate for you to be selling and save cash like a fiend. Okay. This was mentioned in a couple of talks, but having a high amount of withholdings is incredibly important. Okay. We don't only look at, who gets to go out and run an office, because running an office, Lexi, it is not a right. It is a privilege, right? It is a big investment of trust on the company level for a young adult to be able to do that, right? We want people to run branches. Don't get me wrong, right? But there's no sense in letting someone do that is primed to have a bad experience. And generally, someone that has more money saved, Trina, they can afford a higher advertising budget, right? If you have more saved to run a business, you're generally going to be more cash confident. And it's not just like this in the Cutco world, it's like that anywhere, right? That's why every startup is constantly looking for seed money, for venture capitalists, right? The more money you have, the more aggressive you can be about expansion, the more aggressive you can be about pursuing your outcomes, And truthfully, the more you can afford, right? Generally, the better, quote unquote, territory you get. And what I mean by better is bigger, right? Generally, an office that has more people open to them is probably going to work with more people, right? Generally, the more people you work with, the more you're going to do. Generally, the more that you do, the more that you earn. It's not always the case, Marilyn. And we could talk to Andrew Belonga about how to make the maximum use out of a tiny area. He's one of the best branches in the company and one of the smallest territories, right? But what I'd hope for you, Danny, is that you're at least in a position where you have options. And if there's a spot in your division that you really want, that you can make a compelling case of why you're supposed to be there over the next person, right? I'm not saying sell $5,000 a week every week till the end of time. Do it if you want to, right? But when it's appropriate for you to be selling, you should sell, and you should definitely be on top of your savings. Now, if you're like, how much money does it take to run an office? There's not a specific dollar amount. I can tell you in our division, no one goes out with less than $5,000 saved. And that's not like the high watermark, right? What we promote is, have $10,000 saved. Now, Easton, that's a big number. And I'll be honest with you, not everybody has $10,000 saved. Most people that have $10,000 saved, they don't even use that money, Brendan, right? The company has a lot of seed money that branch managers get too. It's company startup that goes into it. But when Weston Porter opened his branch, he had over $10,000 in the bank that he never touched, truthfully, right? But I knew that he was cash confident that he could go about building the best office that he could for the summer, right? And so, Jessica, when you're like, hey, how much should I have saved? I don't have a number for you. That's a conversation for you and your manager, right? But I know the more the merrier. And I know that no one ever complained about having too much money saved in their bank. Does that make sense? All right, give me a double fist bump if I'm talking sense. Yeah, I'll take it. That's our gateway weight, by the way. All right, couple bonus tips for you. Again, just to be frank with you, when I first started Leadership Academy, I had zero intentions of becoming a district manager. I was going to be a financial advisor. Maybe work with commodities trading. It was pretty dead set on, I'm going to be a financial advisor. I'm going to live in St. Louis. I'm going to rock this field. Okay. It's still worth doing TLA and acting as if at the end of the program, you're going to run an office. Because truly, the worst case scenario that happens for someone that shows up and does the best they can with the TLA program is that you just don't end up running an office. Right, Shaylee? What you will have, though, is you'll have more cash saved in the bank than you would have otherwise. That's positive, right? You'll have a better skill set that you can apply for whatever the next step is for you in life. You'll absolutely have confidence gain, JC, working with people. And like Jacob said, being in Leadership Academy, it doesn't guarantee you the chance to run a branch or district office, but it does guarantee you a spot somewhere in our company next year, right? The worst case scenario, as I see it, if you stay with Cutco, if you don't run an office, you're a very well-paid sales manager or lead assistant. And Jeremiah, I will tell you, that's a great place to be too, okay? The second thing that I'll share with you is, as I'm bringing this to a close here, is if you're like, how do I make the most of this opportunity? Well, Lauren, just ask your managers for opportunities to grow. Even if you feel like you're too new in the business to do something, ask anyway. Because Kira, most of your managers, they want to get you involved. They want to get you trained up. They want to help you grow and build your skill set. You know, whether that's running your first interview or first, post interview, it might be with setting fire number in your weekly blitz. You might, even if you're at school, you might be given, a rep or two, right? That you can personally coach, that calls you for deals, that calls you for advice, right? It could be as simple back as speaking at an event like your team meeting or running one champions club every 2 weeks. That's your chance truly for the next 9 months to mess up at your district or division manager's expense, right? It's not your office yet, and that's great, right? But you can get a chance over the next 9 months here and there to build up your skill set without any of the risk. And, I'd implore you, like, take as many opportunities like that as possible. Okay. How to be in TLA, truthfully, at the end of the day, keep doing what you've been doing up until this point. Keep the same skill sets, keep the same habits and disciplines that you've had that have helped you to be a really successful rep so far. Fine tune them if you need to, level them up a little bit, but dive in as much as you can over the next 9 months. And I'm going to be looking forward to seeing many of you promoted coming up here in a couple of months at the year-end banquet. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for the time.
Fantastic, Michael. Outstanding message.